Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the Star Runner. He looked at the screens showing empty space. For 3 years they had been exploring the outer edges of known space. Nothing exciting ever happened out here. Just empty void and distant stars. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Ben Tucker from his station, "I'm getting something strange on the long-range sensors." Jake walked over to Ben's station. The young officer pointed at his screen. There were waves of energy coming from a direction that should have been empty space. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked. "Artificial signals, sir. They're coming from the Sol system." Jake felt his blood go cold. Everyone knew about Sol. It was the dead zone, the place where an ancient race called humans once lived. The Galactic Council had put up barriers around that system over 3,000 years ago. Nothing was supposed to get in or out. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked. Ben nodded. "Yes, sir. The signals are definitely artificial. They're using mathematical patterns. Someone is trying to communicate." Jake thought about what to do. The Sol system was forbidden. No ship was allowed to go near it. The Council had been very clear about that rule. But if something was sending signals from inside the barriers, they needed to know what it was. "Send a message to Admiral Frank Phillips at Central Command," Jake ordered. "Tell him we're picking up signals from Sol." Dr. Lisa Carter, the ship's scientist, came onto the bridge. She had heard the conversation from her lab next door. Lisa studied old alien civilizations. She knew more about the forbidden zones than anyone else on the ship. "Captain, may I see the signals?" she asked. Jake nodded. Lisa looked at Ben's screen for a long time. Her face grew pale as she studied the data. "This is impossible," she whispered. "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "These signals contain star maps. Very detailed star maps. They show the position of every star system within 100 light-years of Sol. But the humans were supposed to be primitive when they were sealed away. They barely had space travel." Jake felt confused. Maybe the signals are from someone else. Maybe another race got trapped in there with them. Lisa shook her head. "No, sir. The mathematical base they're using is clearly human. It's the same system they used in their early broadcast before the quarantine." A message came back from Admiral Phillips. He wanted to see all the data immediately. Jake ordered his crew to send everything they had collected. Then they waited. Hours passed. Finally, another message arrived from Central Command. 3 other Council ships had picked up similar signals from Sol. The Admiral was sending more ships to investigate. The Star Runner was ordered to stay where they were and keep monitoring. Far away on the Council homeworld of Vega Prime, Ambassador Zektar of the Altarian Collective received an urgent message. His 4 eyes widened as he read the report. Signals from Sol could only mean one thing. The ancient seals were failing. Zektar rushed to the Council chambers. He found Elder Counselor Morden in his private office. The old alien looked tired. He had been alive when the Sol barriers were first put in place. He remembered the fear that had driven the Council to that extreme action. "Elder, we have a problem," Zektar said. "The Sol barriers are showing signs of instability." Morden's tentacles went rigid with fear. "Are you certain?" 3 ships have detected artificial signals coming from inside the quarantine zone. The energy readings suggest the barriers are weakening. Morden stood up slowly. His old body ached, but this news made him feel ancient. "Call an emergency council session. It's time to open the classified archives." "The human files?" Zektar asked. "Yes. After 3,000 years, it's time the current council learned the truth about why we sealed Earth away." The emergency session was called within hours. Council members from dozens of species gathered in the Great Chamber. Most of them had only heard stories about the humans. To them, Sol was just another forbidden zone. They didn't understand why it was so important. Morden activated the classified archives. Holographic displays filled the chamber with data that had been locked away for millennia. The council members read in silence. Their expressions changed from curiosity to fear. The files told a story that few remembered. Humans had not been sealed away because they were dangerous to themselves. They had been quarantined because they were dangerous to everyone else. The last entry in the files was a report from Observer Kelntar, the final council agent to leave Earth before the barriers went up. His words were simple but terrifying. "The humans have discovered something we never thought possible. They have learned to control their own evolution. They can change their biology at will. If they are allowed to spread to other worlds, no other species will be able to compete with them. They must be contained." Back on the Star Runner, Jake watched the signals from Sol grow stronger. The mathematical patterns were becoming more complex. It was like someone was testing the communication channel, seeing how much data they could send. "Captain," Ben called out, "I'm getting something new. It looks like a response signal." "A response to what?" Jake asked. "To our probe signals, sir. We've been sending standard first contact protocols towards Sol. Now something is answering back." Lisa studied the new data. Her hands shook as she worked. "Captain, this isn't just a response. They're using our own communication protocols. They know our language. They know our technology standards." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "How is that possible?" "I don't know, sir. But whoever is in there has been listening to our communications. They understand how our technology works." The signals from Sol continued to grow stronger. Soon it became clear that they weren't random. Someone inside the quarantine zone was deliberately trying to make contact with the outside galaxy. After 3,000 years of silence, the humans were reaching out. But the most frightening part was how advanced their technology seemed. The barriers that had contained them for millennia were failing, and from the strength of the signals, it looked like the humans were the ones taking them down. Jake realized that everything the galaxy thought they knew about Earth was wrong. The humans hadn't been sleeping for 3,000 years. They had been preparing. Dr. Ben Tucker packed his equipment carefully. The Council had chosen him to join Captain Morrison's expanded mission to Sol. As a xenobiologist, his job was to study any life forms they might find. But everyone knew this mission was really about the humans. Ben had read the classified files. The old records painted humans as some kind of evolutionary nightmare, creatures that could change their own biology. It sounded like science fiction to him, but the Council was scared enough to send their best scientists to investigate. The Star Runner had been joined by 4 other ships. Admiral Phillips wanted enough firepower to handle any surprises. As they got closer to Sol, the signals became stronger and clearer. Someone was definitely trying to communicate. "We're approaching the barrier perimeter," announced Navigator Amy Clark from her station. Captain Morrison looked at the main screen. The Sol system lay ahead of them, surrounded by a shimmering energy field. The barriers had contained this system for 3,000 years, but now they could see gaps in the field. Large sections were completely dark. "The barriers are failing," Morrison said quietly. Dr. Tucker studied his readings. "Captain, the energy patterns are strange. It looks like the barriers aren't just failing. They're being taken apart from the inside." Morrison felt uneasy. "What do you mean?" "Someone is dismantling the containment field piece by piece. Look at these energy surges. They're perfectly timed. This isn't random decay. This is controlled demolition." As they got closer to Earth, they saw something that made everyone stop and stare. Massive structures orbited the blue planet. Ships and stations that dwarfed anything in the Council fleet. The technology looked advanced beyond anything they had ever seen. "How is this possible?" Morrison whispered. On Earth, Commander Alex Hayes stood in the command center of Luna Station. He watched the approaching Council ships on his screens. Humanity had been expecting this moment for a long time. They had been preparing for it. "Sir, the Council fleet is requesting permission to enter our space," reported Communications Officer Pete Williams. Alex smiled. After 3,000 years, the galaxy was finally coming back to Earth. "Grant them permission, Pete. Guide them to Earth orbit. It's time we had a proper conversation." Dr. Kate Morgan joined Alex at the main display. As Earth's leading expert on alien psychology, she had spent her life studying the species that had imprisoned her world. She knew more about the Council races than they knew about themselves. "Are you ready for this, Kate?" Alex asked. "As ready as anyone can be," she replied. "We've been watching them for over 1,000 years. We know their languages, their cultures, their fears. The question is whether they're ready for us." Alex nodded. Humanity had not been idle during their quarantine. They had built massive sensor arrays and deep space monitoring stations. Every Council communication had been intercepted and analyzed. Every ship movement had been tracked. Humanity knew about every major event in galactic history. "Send the greeting message," Alex ordered. Pete transmitted a message toward the approaching fleet. It was sent in perfect Council standard, using diplomatic protocols that hadn't changed in centuries. The message was simple. "Welcome to the Sol system. We have been waiting for you. On the Star Runner, the crew stared at their communication screens in shock. The response from Earth had come instantly, in flawless council language. Whoever was down there spoke like a trained diplomat. "Captain," Ben Tucker said slowly, "they knew we were coming." Morrison opened a channel to Earth. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Galactic Council Fleet. We are responding to signals from your system." The reply came immediately. "Captain Morrison, this is Commander Alex Hayes of Earth Defense Command. We have been monitoring your approach for 3 days. We know who you are and why you're here." Morrison felt his heart racing. "How do you know about us?" "Captain, we've been listening to your communications for over 1,000 years. We know about the Council, the member species, and the galactic political situation. We also know about the files you have on humanity." Dr. Carter leaned forward. "Commander Hayes, our records show that your people were at a basic technological level when the quarantine began." Alex's laugh came through the speakers. "Dr. Carter, your records are 3,000 years old. We've had some time to catch up." The Council ships were guided to parking orbits around Earth. As they approached, they could see the true scope of human development. Cities covered most of the continents. Orbital platforms surrounded the planet. Ships moved between Earth and its moon like a constant stream of traffic. "The population readings are incredible," Dr. Tucker reported. "I'm showing over 12 billion humans on Earth alone. That's 10 times what it was during the quarantine." Commander Hayes sent another message. "If you would like to come aboard our station, we can discuss your mission properly. We have prepared accommodations for your entire delegation." Morrison made the decision to accept. They took a shuttle to the human space station. As they docked, they could see human workers moving around in the docking bay. They looked normal enough, but something was different about the way they moved. They seemed too graceful, too quick. Alex Hayes met them at the airlock. He was a tall man with brown hair and friendly eyes. He spoke perfect council standard and knew each crew member by name before introductions were made. "Captain Morrison, Dr. Carter, Dr. Tucker," he said with a smile. "Welcome to Luna Station. I hope your journey wasn't too difficult." "How do you know our names?" Morrison asked. "We've been monitoring council communications for centuries," Alex replied. "We know about your careers, your families, your previous missions. We've been very interested in the people who might one day visit us." They were taken to a conference room where Dr. Kate Morgan waited for them. She had prepared detailed files on each visitor. She knew their psychological profiles, their personal histories, and their political beliefs. "Gentlemen, Dr. Carter," Kate said warmly, "please sit down. We have much to discuss." Dr. Carter looked confused. "How do you speak our language so well?" Kate smiled. "We've had a lot of time to study. We know the languages of every council species. We also know your histories, your technologies, and your social structures." Ben Tucker was studying the humans with his biological sensors. "Your life signs are unusual. Your cellular activity is much higher than normal for your species." Alex and Kate exchanged a look. "Dr. Tucker, that's one of the things we need to talk about. Humanity has changed significantly during our isolation." "Changed how?" Morrison asked. "We've learned to direct our own evolution," Kate said simply. "We can adapt our biology to meet any challenge. It's what made the Council afraid of us 3,000 years ago, and during our quarantine we've perfected the ability." The Council delegation sat in stunned silence. The old files had been right. Humans could control their own evolution, and they had spent 3,000 years getting better at it. "What do you want from us?" Morrison asked finally. Alex leaned forward. "Captain, we want to rejoin galactic civilization. We're ready to take our place among the stars again. The quarantine is over, whether the Council wants it to be or not." Dr. Rachel Coleman entered the conference room with a warm smile. She was Earth's Minister of Evolutionary Sciences. Though the Council delegation didn't understand what that title meant yet, Rachel was about to show them something that would change their understanding of life itself. "Gentlemen, Dr. Carter," Rachel said as she sat down, "Commander Hayes tells me you have questions about human evolution." Captain Morrison nodded slowly. "The old files mention that your people could control biological change. We need to understand what that means. Rachel's eyes sparkled with excitement. It's easier to show you than explain it. Would you mind if I demonstrate? Before anyone could answer, Rachel closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The council delegation watched in horror as her skin began to change color. It shifted from normal human pink to a deep blue-green. Her breathing slowed, then stopped completely. Don't be alarmed, she said, her voice slightly different now. I've adapted my blood chemistry to process carbon dioxide instead of oxygen. I can now survive in an atmosphere that would kill any other human. Dr. Tucker's sensors were going crazy. This is impossible. Your cellular structure is completely different from what it was a minute ago. Rachel smiled and took another breath. Her skin returned to normal color as her biology shifted back. Dr. Tucker, this is what we've spent 3,000 years learning to do. We can adapt our bodies to any environment, any threat, any challenge. The delegation sat in shocked silence. Ben Tucker was the first to speak. How long can you maintain these changes? As long as necessary, Rachel replied. Some of our people have maintained adaptations for decades. Others change multiple times per day depending on their work needs. Commander Hayes gestured toward the viewing window. Would you like to meet some of our specialized personnel? A man in military uniform entered the room. Captain Steve Roberts was tall and looked like a normal human soldier. But when he spoke, his voice had an unusual quality to it. Honored guests, Steve said in perfect council standard. I understand you'd like to see our defensive capabilities. Morrison was curious despite his fear. What kind of soldier are you, Captain Roberts? Steve smiled. I'm an environmental combat specialist. Would you like me to demonstrate? Without waiting for an answer, Steve walked to the airlock door. He pressed a control that opened it to the vacuum of space. The council delegation expected him to be sucked out and killed instantly. Instead, Steve stepped calmly into the vacuum. Through the viewing window, they watched him move around in space without any protection. His skin had turned gray and thick. His eyes had changed to protect against radiation. He was breathing normally even though there was no air. How is he alive? Dr. Carter whispered. His body adapted to the space environment in about 30 seconds, Rachel explained. His blood chemistry changed to store oxygen more efficiently. His skin thickened to protect against radiation and pressure changes. His organs shifted to handle the stress of vacuum. Steve returned to the room and his body quickly returned to normal. The adaptation process is automatic now. My nervous system detects environmental threats and responds before I'm even aware of the danger. Dr. Tucker was studying his readings frantically. Your processing speed. Your nervous system is operating at impossible levels. Dr. Tucker, that's another improvement, Steve replied. My brain processes information about 1,000 times faster than baseline human normal. I can analyze and respond to threats almost instantly. Rachel nodded. All of our military personnel have enhanced cognitive processing. It allows them to adapt to new situations very quickly. A new person entered the room. Dr. Nancy Park was a small woman with kind eyes. She worked in Earth's medical research division. I heard we were showing off today, she said with a laugh. Dr. Park specializes in biological threats, Rachel explained. Nancy, would you mind demonstrating your immune system? Nancy walked to a wall panel and removed a small vial. This contains a synthetic virus designed to attack human nervous systems. It would kill a normal person in minutes. Before anyone could stop her, Nancy opened the vial and drank the contents. The council delegation jumped up in alarm, but Nancy just smiled. Don't worry, she said calmly. Watch my blood work on the monitors. Dr. Tucker stared at his sensors as Nancy's immune system kicked into action. Her white blood cell count exploded. Her body temperature rose slightly. Within 5 minutes, her system had completely eliminated the virus and developed permanent immunity to it. My immune system can analyze and counter any biological weapon, Nancy explained. Poisons, viruses, bacteria, genetic attacks, nothing can harm me for more than a few minutes. Captain Morrison felt sick. How many humans can do things like this? All of them, Commander Hayes replied quietly. Every child born in the last 1,000 years has these capabilities. We've created different specializations for different purposes, but the basic adaptation ability is universal. A door opened and General Paul Anderson walked in. He was an older man with gray hair and serious eyes. His presence filled the room with quiet authority. General Anderson oversees our planetary defense, Hayes explained. Captain Morrison, the general said, your Admiral Phillips is probably wondering about our military capabilities. Let me be direct with you. Earth's population is 12 billion people. Every single one of them is a potential soldier who can adapt to any combat situation. Morrison's hands were shaking. Are you threatening us? General Anderson shook his head. Not at all. We're explaining our situation. The Council put barriers around our system to contain us. Those barriers kept you out, but they also gave us time to become something new. What do you want from the galaxy? Dr. Carter asked. A new voice answered from the doorway. Ambassador Carter Williams had arrived. He was a distinguished man in diplomatic robes. His presence was calm but powerful. Dr. Carter, we want what any people want, the ambassador said. We want freedom to travel, to trade, to explore, to build colonies on new worlds. We want to take our place in galactic civilization. And if the Council refuses? Morrison asked. Ambassador Williams smiled sadly. Captain, the quarantine is already over. Our ships are ready to leave Sol system, whether the Council approves or not. We'd prefer to do this peacefully as friends and equals, but we won't be prisoners anymore. Dr. Tucker was still staring at his readings. Your population, it's not just large. Every person I've scanned has capabilities that exceed anything we've ever seen. You've created a race of living weapons. Rachel shook her head. Dr. Tucker, we've created a race of living solutions. Every challenge the galaxy faces, disease, environmental disasters, hostile worlds, dangerous species, we can adapt to handle it. But you could also destroy anyone who opposes you, Morrison said quietly. General Anderson nodded. Yes, Captain, if we chose to, but that's not who we are. We spent 3,000 years learning to control our evolution. We also learned to control ourselves. Ambassador Williams stepped forward. The Council will have to make a choice. Accept us as equals and partners or try to maintain the barriers. But I should warn you, our engineers estimate the remaining barriers will fail completely within 6 months regardless of what anyone does. The Council delegation realized they were facing something unprecedented. Humanity hadn't just survived their quarantine. They had used it to transform themselves into something beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The question now was whether this new humanity would be friend or enemy to the rest of the galaxy. Commander Hayes looked at each member of the delegation. Gentlemen, Dr. Carter, we know this is overwhelming. Take your time to process what you've seen, but please understand. We're not the same species that was sealed away 3,000 years ago. We're what we chose to become during our isolation. Elder Counselor Mordoon stood before the emergency assembly on Vega Prime. Hundreds of representatives from dozens of species filled the great chamber. They had all read the reports from the Sol mission. Fear filled the air like a thick cloud. Honorable Council members, Mordoon began, his voice heavy with age and regret. You have read what Captain Morrison's team discovered. Now you must know the full truth about why we sealed the humans away. The chamber fell silent. Most of the current council had been born long after the quarantine began. To them, humans were just another extinct species. Now they were learning that humanity was very much alive and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. 3,000 years ago, Mordoon continued, humans were not the primitive species our files suggested. They had just developed faster than light travel. Their first contact with our civilization seemed peaceful enough. An image appeared on the main display. It showed a blue-green world with sprawling cities and orbital stations. This was Earth as we first knew it. A young species eager to explore and learn. We welcomed them into galactic society. The display changed to show human colonies on various worlds. Within 50 years, human settlements appeared throughout Council space. They were excellent colonists. Hardy, adaptable, intelligent. They seemed to thrive everywhere they went. Mordoon's expression grew dark. But we began to notice something troubling. On every world where humans settled, they quickly became the dominant species. Not through conquest or violence, but through simple biological superiority. A younger council member, Representative Veltar of Rigel, spoke up. What do you mean by biological superiority? I mean that humans could survive and thrive in environments that killed other species, Mordoon replied. They adapted to high-radiation worlds where even our most protected workers died. They lived comfortably on planets with toxic atmospheres. They colonized worlds we thought were uninhabitable. Another image showed a world covered in purple vegetation under a red star. New Kepler was considered a death world. The plant life there produced airborne toxins that would kill most species within hours. Humans not only survived there, they thrived. Within a generation, their children were breathing the toxic air safely. The council chamber buzzed with nervous whispers. This was information that had been kept secret for millennia. The breaking point came during the Centaurian plague. Morden continued. It was the deadliest disease in galactic history. Millions died across 12 star systems. We sent our best medical teams, but nothing could stop it. The display showed images of dying cities and empty streets. Dr. Susan Blake was a human scientist working with our medical teams on Centauri Prime. When she was exposed to the plague, we expected her to die like everyone else. Morden paused, remembering that terrible time. Instead, something unprecedented happened. Her body fought off the disease. Not only did she survive, but within days her immune system had developed a complete defense against the plague. She lived while millions died around her, he continued. But that wasn't the terrifying part. The terrifying part was how quickly she created a cure. Within 1 month, Dr. Blake had synthesized a treatment that saved every remaining victim of the plague. The chamber was completely silent now. Council members stared at the display in shock. A single human had solved in weeks what our best scientists couldn't solve in years. Morden said, "That's when we realized what we were dealing with. Humans weren't just another species. They were evolution's ultimate answer to every challenge." Back on Earth, General Mike Thompson sat in the military archives, reviewing historical records for the Council delegation. As Earth's chief military historian, he had spent decades studying the events that led to the quarantine. "The Council calls them the Terran Wars," Mike explained to Captain Morrison. "But that name is misleading. There was no real war. It was more like a panic response." Morrison leaned forward in his chair. "What do you mean?" "The Council powers realized that humanity represented an evolutionary dead end for every other species," Mike replied. "In a universe where humans existed and could spread freely, no other race would be able to compete. They wouldn't be conquered, they would simply become obsolete." Mike activated a holographic display showing star maps from 3,000 years ago. "Look at these colonization patterns. Every world where humans and aliens tried to coexist, the humans gradually became dominant. Not through violence or oppression, but through simple biological advantage. The other species couldn't adapt fast enough to compete," Morrison realized. "Exactly," Mike nodded. "Humans could live anywhere, eat anything, survive any disease, adapt to any threat. Within a few generations, human populations were outgrowing and outcompeting every other species on shared worlds." Dr. Carter was studying the historical data. "So the Council decided to eliminate the competition?" "They tried," Mike replied. "But they quickly discovered that humans were very hard to kill. Our adaptability made us nearly impossible to destroy through conventional means." The display showed images of failed military campaigns. The Council's first attempts at genocide were disasters. Human populations adapted to every weapon, every poison, every biological attack. Military strikes just made humans stronger and more unified. "So they decided on containment instead," Morrison said. Mike nodded grimly. "The Great Seal was their solution. Instead of trying to destroy humanity, they would lock us away forever. It required the combined energy output of 20 star systems to create barriers strong enough to contain Sol. They told themselves they were protecting humanity from the dangers of galactic civilization," Mike continued. "But the truth was they were protecting themselves from humanity's potential." Back on Vega Prime, Morden was reaching the climax of his revelation. "The final decision was made in this very chamber," he said, his voice filled with shame. "We voted to seal humanity away from the galaxy. We convinced ourselves it was for everyone's protection, including theirs. But you were really just afraid," Representative Veltar said quietly. "Yes," Morden admitted. "We were terrified. Not of human aggression or violence, but of human potential. We realized that if humanity continued to spread and evolve, every other species in the galaxy would eventually go extinct, not through war or conquest, but through simple biological obsolescence." The display showed the construction of the Great Seal. Massive energy projectors surrounded the Sol system, creating barriers that nothing could cross. "We thought we had solved the problem," Morden said. "Humanity was contained. The galaxy was safe. Other species could continue to evolve and thrive without human competition. But we were wrong about everything," he continued. "We thought isolation would weaken humanity. Instead, it gave them time to become everything we feared they might become." On Earth, Dr. Linda Parker was demonstrating humanity's current capabilities to the shocked council delegation. She stood in a sealed chamber filled with methane gas that would kill any other species instantly. The council's fear was justified, she said calmly as her body adapted to breathe the toxic atmosphere. We have become the apex predators of evolution itself. We can adapt to any environment, overcome any challenge, outlive any threat. Her body shifted back to normal as she returned to breathable air, but the council made one crucial error in their calculations. What error? Morrison asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. Linda smiled sadly. They assumed that ultimate evolutionary superiority would make us monsters. They thought we would conquer and destroy everything in our path. Won't you? Dr. Carter asked quietly. Dr. Carter, Linda replied, we spent 3,000 years learning to control our evolution. In that time, we also learned to control ourselves. Yes, we could destroy every other species in the galaxy, but that's not who we choose to be. The council delegation was beginning to understand. Humanity hadn't just evolved physically during their isolation. They had evolved morally and ethically as well. They had become the galaxy's ultimate predators, but they had chosen to be protectors instead. The question was whether the rest of the galaxy would believe them. Captain Morrison's ship approached council space with news that would change the galaxy forever. The Star Runner's crew had spent 2 weeks on Earth, and what they had learned defied everything the council believed about humanity. Admiral Phillips waited in his office at Central Command. The military leader had been preparing for war since the first reports from Sol. Battle fleets were positioned throughout council space. Weapons that hadn't been used in centuries were being readied for deployment. Admiral, Morrison said as he entered the office. We need to talk. Phillips looked at the tired faces of Morrison's crew. Captain, your reports have been disturbing. The council is prepared to reinforce the barriers around Sol. We won't let these evolved humans spread across the galaxy. Morrison shook his head. Sir, with respect, you don't understand what we're dealing with. Humanity doesn't want to conquer the galaxy. They want to help it. Help it? Phillips laughed bitterly. Captain, these creatures could destroy every species in known space. How exactly do they want to help? Dr. Carter stepped forward. Admiral, they want to share their evolutionary abilities with other species. They believe they can lift the entire galaxy to their level. Phillips stared at her in disbelief. That's impossible. Evolution doesn't work that way. It does for humans, Morrison replied. They've learned to transfer their adaptive abilities to other species. They want to create a galaxy where everyone can survive and thrive in any environment. Before Phillips could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the station. A massive fleet of ships had just entered council space. But these weren't attacking. They were broadcasting peace signals on all frequencies. Commander Hayes led a delegation of 100 humans to the council homeworld. Each ship carried volunteers ready to demonstrate humanity's true intentions. They came not as conquerors, but as healers and helpers. Dr. Morgan stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching Vega Prime grow larger on the screen. After studying the council species for centuries, she was finally going to meet them face to face. Kate, are you nervous? Alex asked. She smiled. After 1,000 years of preparation? No, I'm excited. This is what we've been working toward. The human fleet took up orbit around Vega Prime. Each ship immediately began broadcasting offers of assistance. They had brought solutions to problems that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. President Nancy Clark of Earth's unified government sent a simple message to the Council Assembly. Honored Council members, we come to you not as conquerors but as partners. We offer our abilities freely to any world that needs help. Elder Counselor Morden read the message to the Emergency Assembly. The chamber was filled with fear and confusion. How should they respond to beings who could destroy them but claimed they wanted to help instead? What guarantees do we have? Asked Representative Veltar. How do we know this isn't some elaborate trick? Morden activated the communication system. President Clark, the Council appreciates your offer, but we need to understand your true intentions. Nancy's response came immediately. Elder Counselor, actions speak louder than words. We've prepared demonstrations of our capabilities that should answer your concerns. On the planet's surface, a human team led by Dr. Rachel Coleman set up their equipment. They had brought a sample of the Centaurian plague, the same disease that had nearly destroyed the galaxy 3,000 years ago. Council members, Rachel broadcast. "We know you remember the plague that killed millions. We're going to show you what human medicine can do now." She exposed herself to the plague virus while council scientists watched through remote sensors. Within minutes, her immune system had identified, analyzed, and defeated the disease. But that wasn't the impressive part. "Now watch this," Rachel said. She took a sample of her adapted blood and treated a dozen volunteers from various species with it. The aliens who received the treatment immediately developed immunity to the plague. "We can share our biological advantages," she explained. "Any species can be enhanced to resist disease, survive in hostile environments, and adapt to new challenges." The council chamber erupted in shocked discussion. This changed everything. Humanity wasn't offering conquest, they were offering evolution itself. But Admiral Phillips wasn't convinced. His battle fleets surrounded the human ships, weapons powered and ready. "This could be a biological attack," he warned the council. "They could be infecting our people with something that looks helpful but is actually dangerous." Dr. Park, working with another human team, addressed this concern directly. She allowed council scientists to run every test they wanted on the enhanced volunteers. The results were clear. The humans had only given beneficial modifications. No hidden viruses, no secret weapons, no biological time bombs. "Admiral Phillips," Nancy Clark's voice came through the council communication system. "Your fleets are impressive. But please understand, if we wanted to harm you, your weapons couldn't stop us." To prove her point, a single human ship approached Phillips's flagship. Captain Steve Roberts, the enhanced soldier Morrison had met, transmitted his own message. "Admiral, I'm going to disable your main weapons without harming anyone on your ship," Steve announced. Before Phillips could respond, Steve's ship released a cloud of microscopic robots. The tiny machine swarmed over the council flagship, carefully dismantling its weapon systems piece by piece. Within minutes, the most powerful warship in the council fleet was defenseless. "Your weapons are safely stored in your cargo bay," Steve reported. "My people can put them back together whenever you want. We just wanted to show you that resistance would be pointless." Phillips stared at his useless control panels. Every weapon system on his ship had been carefully removed without triggering a single alarm or hurting a single crew member. "How?" he whispered. "Admiral, we've been studying your technology for 1,000 years," Steve replied gently. "We know how everything works. We could disable every ship in your fleet in the same way, but we won't because we're not here to fight." General Anderson, commanding the human fleet, sent a message to all council ships. "All vessels, please stand down. We have no hostile intentions. We're here to offer partnership, not conquest." The council faced an impossible decision. They could continue to resist beings who could effortlessly defeat them, or they could accept humanity's offer of cooperation. President Clark made the choice simple. "Council members, the quarantine is over whether you approve it or not. Nothing can contain humanity now. The question isn't whether we'll spread across the galaxy. We will. The question is whether we do it as your partners or as strangers who happen to live in the same universe." Dr. Morgan added, "We've spent 3,000 years preparing for this moment. We know about every failing colony, every dying world, every environmental disaster in council space. We can fix all of it, but we need your permission to help." In the council chamber, Morden stood to address the assembly. "Honored colleagues, we have a choice to make. We can continue to fear humanity's potential, or we can embrace it. What if they turn against us later?" Representative Veltar asked. "Then we'll be no worse off than we are now," Morden replied. "They already have the power to destroy us. The fact that they're offering to help instead suggests they mean what they say." The vote was close, but it passed. The council officially welcomed humanity back into galactic civilization. As human ships began spreading across the galaxy, they brought miracles with them. Dying colonies were saved by humans who could survive in toxic environments and create solutions to impossible problems. Worlds that had been uninhabitable for centuries became garden paradises under human care. On a remote research station, former Elder Counselor Morden worked alongside human scientists. He had become an advisor to the new Human Council Alliance. His job was to help bridge the gap between the old galaxy and the new one humanity was creating. "Morden," asked Dr. Coleman, "do you think we made the right choice?" The old alien looked out at the stars, where human and alien ships worked together to build something unprecedented, a truly galactic civilization where every species could thrive. "Dr. Coleman," he said slowly, 3,000 years ago, We feared what humanity might become. We were right to fear your potential, but we were wrong about your nature. He turned to face her with something like wonder in his ancient eyes. You became what we feared, the ultimate evolutionary apex. But you chose to use that power to lift others up instead of crushing them down. Morden activated his personal log and began to write the final entry in humanity's file. Council Archive Final Entry. We were wrong about everything except their potential. They have become what we feared, but they chose to become what we needed. The galaxy is no longer a place where species compete for survival. It has become a place where all life can flourish together. Humanity has shown us that the apex of evolution isn't dominance, it's compassion. As he finished writing, Morden smiled. The terrifying truth about humanity hadn't been their power to destroy. It had been their choice to create instead.